There, as we mentioned before, St. John the Apostle sees Our Lady. He sees a woman clothed in the sun. She has a crown of 12 stars on her head. She's standing on the moon. And in antiquity, for Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, the ancient Greeks, the moon was the border between the earthly realm of everything that's changing. Remember, the moon changes, it waxes and it wanes. And then everything above the moon was seen as heavenly, permanent, eternal. And so when John sees Our Lady standing on the moon, he's saying that she has been lifted up above what's changing, above the temporal, above the earthly, and she's now in heaven. That's what's going on there in that image in the book of Revelation, chapter 12. It also places Our Lady in an apocalyptic genre. So the last time we see the Blessed Virgin Mary is in the Apocalypse of St. John. And the Apocalypse talks about these 3.5-year periods. There's a 3.5 period and another 3.5 period. There's a 7-year tribulation period that happens in Jerusalem from the year 63 to the year 70. And in those 7 years, there's what's called the Jewish-Roman War. And the Romans eventually destroy Jerusalem. They destroy the temple. They sack the city. And it's an absolutely horrible event. If you've listened to my podcast, the commentary on the book of Revelation, we go through this line by line, detail by detail, using the book of Revelation and the Jewish historian Josephus. So if you're interested in that, please consult those resources as well. But what we see is Our Lady's in an apocalyptic depiction. And the end of the Old Covenant, the destruction of the temple, happens in the year AD 70. And so Our Lady's assumption in around the year 63, which would be that 7-year period, allows her to be interviewed by St. Luke, but it also, and this makes great sense theologically and covenantally, Christ lifts her up, assumes her into heaven, body and soul, sits her at the right hand of himself, so that she can be an intercessor and pray, because the great persecution is about to happen to the church, beginning in 63 all the way to 70. All the apostles are going to be martyred, all the early Christians, tons of martyrdom, Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. Our Lady can exercise her royal ministry much better now in heaven than she could on earth. So she needs to be a heavenly advocate. And then, of course, the fourth one we mentioned already is Our Lady needs to be interviewed by St. Luke. And this tradition places this in the early 60s. And so once she gives her testimony to St. Luke about the conception and birth of Christ, she's fulfilled that part of her ministry on earth, as well as being a witness to the virginal conception and the virginal birth of Our Lady, and her time on earth is finished. There's one more, maybe a fifth one that we could throw in there, and that is Herod, the king, finished the temple in Jerusalem in the year AD 63. And of course, we know that Our Lady is in fact the true temple, the true Ark of the Covenant. So by her being assumed and glorified and lifted up in 63, it would also kind of be a, how we say it, covenantal and sacramental diss on the Herodian temple, which had just been finished. So I think you can see here that probably everything's pointing to this early 60s, and I like to think about AD 63 as probably the most likely date for the Dormition and the Assumption of Our Lady. As we close out this module, we, members of the New St. Thomas Institute, rededicate, we reconsecrate ourselves to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Our Lady, under her title, Our Lady of Guadalupe, is the patroness of the New St. Thomas Institute. And I would ask that you would continue to pray for the New St. Thomas Institute. Pray for me. I pray every day for you and ask God's blessing on you and ask for Our Lady's prayers for you. So she is our great advocate, and may she pray for us always. Thanks so much for being a member of the New St. Thomas Institute. Thanks for watching this lesson, and we'll see you in the next module.